Okay, get this. Imagine a band whose entire career, from the day they formed to their very last concert, lasted less time than it takes to get a college degree. But in that incredibly short window, they managed to invent new ways to play, totally redefine what a rock band could be, and honestly, they just left a massive crater in the musical landscape that artists are still digging through today. And that's really the heart of the Cream story, isn't it? The very same things that fueled their genius were also the things that guaranteed they would just completely burn out. So let's dive in and see how this all got started. To really get Cream, you have to understand just how they came together. I mean, this was not your typical band forming in a garage. This was more like a merger of titans. That's right, the term supergroup was basically invented for these guys. Their name, Cream, was a bit of a cheeky joke, but it was true. They were the absolute cream of the crop of the whole London music scene, and everybody knew it before they'd even played a single note together. And, this wasn't some happy accident. The ambition here was huge right from day one. Drummer Ginger Baker didn't just want to start a band. He was out to build a world-conquering musical force, nothing less. But here's the central problem, the real drama of the whole thing. The bassist Baker wanted, Jack Bruce, was also his sworn enemy. Musically, you couldn't find two people more in sync. They were practically telepathic. But personally, a complete and utter disaster. We're talking onstage fights, and yeah, that story about Baker pulling a knife on Bruce, totally true. It's why Bruce wasn't in their old band anymore. And the pedigree of these three was just off the charts. You've got Eric Clapton, who people were already calling God for his incredible blues guitar playing. Then there's Jack Bruce, this classically trained genius who could play pretty much anything. And Ginger Baker, a drummer completely obsessed with jazz and complex African rhythms. Each one was already a star. So this brings us to the moment it all happens. Baker convinces Clapton to join him. But Clapton, who'd played with Jack Bruce before, knew he was the only bassist who had the chops to pull this whole thing off. So he lays down the law. If you want me, you have to get Jack Bruce. Baker literally had to swallow his pride and bring his nemesis into the band, setting the stage for one of the most brilliant and explosive partnerships in rock history. All right, so the lineup is set. Now they have to figure out, how do three virtuosos with no rhythm guitarist actually sound together? Well, the answer turned out to be a whole new sound for rock and roll. They basically invented the power trio. See, without a fourth person, everybody had to do more work. Clapton had to play this hybrid of lead and rhythm guitar. Bruce's bass wasn't just holding down the low end, it became a second lead instrument. And Baker's drums, with that famous double kick setup, were pushed way out front. It was like a three-man orchestra. And at the absolute heart of this new sound was Clapton's legendary woman tone. This wasn't just random feedback, it was carefully designed. He'd use his Gibson's neck pickup, crank the amp's volume, but then roll his guitar's tone knob all the way off. The result was this thick, singing, almost vocal-like sound that became one of the most copied guitar tones ever. The amount of music they put out in this period is just staggering. 4 landmark albums in a little over 2 years. Think about that. From the gritty blues of Fresh Cream to the psychedelic masterpiece Disraeli Gears. And everything after, their evolution in the studio was happening at light speed. But, as groundbreaking as they were in the studio, the real revolution happened live on stage, especially when they got to America. So, a huge turning point happens when they land in San Francisco in '67. The famous promoter Bill Graham, who ran the Fillmore, basically told them, forget your 3-minute pop songs. The audiences here, they want you to stretch out, to explore, to just play. And that just completely liberated them. They started improvising, turning these old blues songs into 20-minute-long cosmic explorations. This wasn't just endless soloing. It was a 3-way musical conversation, totally rooted in jazz. Bands that were there, like the Grateful Dead, and later on the Allman Brothers Band, saw what Cream was doing, and it changed everything for them. Cream literally wrote the rulebook for the American jam band scene. And their commercial peak perfectly captured the split personality. Wheels of Fire was a massive, massive hit. It was the very first double album in history to go platinum. Just an incredible achievement. And the way they structured it was just genius. One record was full of these polished, incredible studio tracks like the epic White Room. And the other record? It was them live, completely raw and unleashed at the Fillmore. It was the perfect snapshot of exactly who Cream was. Masters of the studio and monsters on the stage. But that same fire that shot them to the top of the world well, it was also what was burning them out. The end came almost as fast as the beginning. And this quote right here, it just tells you everything about the human cost. Clapton felt like he was trapped between the non-stop, bitter fighting of Baker and Bruce. He wasn't a musician in a band anymore. He was a referee in a really toxic relationship, and it was just sucking all the joy out of the music for him.
Really, it was just a perfect storm of problems. You had the personal hatred, which was made even worse by these insane volume wars on stage where they'd try to drown each other out. That led to creative burnout, this feeling that they were just showing off instead of making music. And then a really nasty Rolling Stone review just crushed Clapton and made him second-guess the whole thing.
And this is the legendary story that really signaled the end. During a show, Clapton just stopped playing. He just stopped, and the music kept going. Baker and Bruce were so locked into their own little competitive battle that they didn't even realize their guitarist was gone. For Clapton, that was it. The connection, the magic, it had totally vanished. So after 2 huge farewell shows in 1968, Cream was done. But their influence? It was really just getting started. I mean, you can draw a straight line from Cream to so many of the genres that came after them. The heavy riff-based songs and the sheer volume, that's the blueprint for heavy metal. The incredible musicianship and all the complex, jazzy parts, that's a direct line to progressive rock. And their super high-energy mix of blues and rock, that became the foundation for Southern rock. Their DNA is just everywhere. Which brings us all the way back to that big question, right? Could a band this revolutionary have even existed without all that friction, that conflict, that oil and water thing they had going on? It's impossible to know for sure, but it really makes you wonder if that brilliant, blinding light they created could only have come from a fire that was always destined to burn itself out.